You know what a $50,000 chandelier looks like when you're standing beneath it being humiliated? It looks like a weapon. I was 29 years old, standing in the back of a ballroom with 320 of the most important doctors in the state, watching my father prepare to destroy my dignity in front of all of them. The chandelier was throwing diamonds of light across the marble floor. My father stood at the mahogany podium, chest puffed out like he owned the room. He probably thought he did. He looked back at me, gave that thin, mocking smile, and leaned into the microphone. "And this is my daughter, Elena," he said, his voice booming through the speakers. "She teaches preschool. It is basically professional babysitting, really, but someone has to do it." The laughter started low and rippled across the room until it was a roar. Cruel, polished. The kind of sound that strips the skin right off your dignity. 320 pairs of eyes burning into me. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stared him down, keeping my chin level, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. That's when the room went cold. Julianne walked up to the stage. She was the chair of the Harper Foundation, the woman who controlled every major medical grant in the state. She didn't look at the crowd. She looked straight at my father. "Interesting introduction, Dr. Vance," she said, her voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. "Now let me tell everyone here who your daughter really is. You might want to sit down." The laughter died. My father's smile froze. His face turned the color of ash. In that silence, the world didn't just stop. It shifted under my feet. I watched his face crumble. I didn't say a word to the crowd. I didn't defend my career. I just pulled my phone from my clutch and hovered my thumb over the Harper Foundation's internal portal. With one steady tap, I flagged the $16 million grant for a mandatory compliance audit. My father's phone buzzed in his breast pocket. He pulled it out, expecting congratulations. Instead, his eyes went wide. The $16 million lifeline he needed to keep his hospital from drowning had just been suspended. He looked at me, confusion turning into pure rage. I stared back, thinking about my master's degree graduation 3 years before. I had stood in the rain waiting for him. He never showed. Later, I found out he was at a steakhouse, signing a high-interest bridge loan for a luxury land deal in Portland that had eventually gone bust. He didn't miss my graduation because he was saving lives. He missed it because he was being greedy. My father always told me I chose teaching because I wasn't smart enough for the family business. The truth is, I chose it because I saw what intelligence did to him. It turned him into a monster. But he forgot one thing. To be a good teacher, you have to be an expert strategist. You have to anticipate every tantrum before it happens. He cornered me in the hallway that night, his face twisted into desperation. He hissed that I was overreacting, that I was sabotaging the very institution that bore our family name. He told me I was a rebellious child who didn't understand high-level medicine. I didn't argue. I just watched the sweat bead on his upper lip. The next morning, the local paper ran a headline that smelled like his influence. "Internal sabotage threatens local cardiac center." He was painting me as a villain, a spiteful daughter holding a grudge over a silly joke. Then came the text from my mother. It was short, panicked. "Elena, please come home. Your father's collapsed. He needs you." My stomach lurched, but my mind stayed cold. I knew the medical stats. I also knew he was desperate. He owed $5 million in bridge loans to private lenders for that Portland deal that was now just a pile of dirt and broken promises. If the $16 million grant didn't clear the audit, those lenders would come for his mansion. When I walked into the house, the air felt like a trap. My brother David stood by the staircase, looking at me with pity and arrogance. He told me I had gone too far, that the stress was killing our father. They led me to his study. My father wasn't on the floor. He was behind his desk, clutching a glass of scotch. He didn't look sick. He looked like a predator. He shoved a document across the mahogany surface, a conflict of interest waiver. "Sign this, Elena," he demanded, his voice devoid of the fake pain from the phone call. "Sign it, and the foundation will have to bypass the audit. You're going to fix the mess you made, or I'll make sure you never step foot in a classroom again." I picked up the heavy fountain pen from his desk, the one he used to sign important things. I scribbled something across the signature line. My father snatched the paper back, his eyes gleaming with a victory he hadn't earned. But as he looked down, his triumph turned into a scowl. I hadn't signed my name. I had written, "Refer to audit case number 709ER. "I'm done being your puppet," I said, my voice as cold as the ice in his scotch. "You didn't invite me here because you were sick. You invited me because you're a thief and you're scared." He lunged for me, but I was already at the door. I left my designer handbag sitting wide open on his side table, the master key folder peeking out from the side. It was bait. I knew he couldn't help himself. I walked into the kitchen and leaned against the counter, counting the seconds. I heard the frantic rustle of paper from the study, then the heavy click of his laptop keys. He thought he was stealing the digital authorization code. He thought he was bypassing the foundation's security to force the $16 million into his account. He didn't know the folder contained a canary token. The moment he typed that master key into his browser, a silent encrypted alert went directly to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's white-collar crime division in Portland. The emergency board meeting the next morning was a Shark Tank. My father walked in, chin high, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. He tossed the folder onto the mahogany table and declared that he had the authorization to bypass the foundation's audit and release the $16 million immediately. He didn't notice that the hospital's CFO wasn't looking at the folder. He was looking at the giant screen at the front of the room. My father began a speech about his legacy and the unfortunate sabotage by his daughter. That's when I walked in, flanked by Julianne and two men in dark charcoal suits. My father's voice faltered. "What is this?" he demanded. I didn't answer. Julianne just pointed to the screen. It wasn't a bank deposit confirmation. It was a live log of the canary token trigger, showing the exact timestamp of the unauthorized access from his home. "Dr. Vance," one of the men said, "Special Agent Miller, your attempt to use a stolen administrative key to bypass federally adjacent funding regulations constitutes securities fraud and wire fraud." My father's face went from confident red to sickly white. He realized the $16 million was never coming. It was just the bait that caught him in a $5 million embezzlement trap. The legal fallout was clinical. 2 weeks after the gala, the judge sentenced Arthur Vance to 15 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for 10 years. He was ordered to pay $16 million in restitution. My brother David didn't escape either. His medical residency was revoked and his license was permanently suspended. My mother filed for divorce 3 days after the arrest. She handed me a secret ledger of my father's offshore accounts, which I passed to the authorities. She lost the mansion, but for the first time in 40 years, she didn't look like she was suffocating. 3 months later, I received a letter from jail. My father told me I owed it to him to use my influence to get his sentence commuted. I didn't get angry. I just walked to the shredder and watched the paper turn into confetti. Indifference is the only language a narcissist truly fears. Tonight, I'm sitting in my classroom. The air smells like crayons and floor wax, the smell of a real career. I've realized something important. Blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty and respect do. You are allowed to walk away from anyone who uses your name as a punchline. People ask me if I regret taking down my own father. I tell them I didn't take him down. He built a house out of lies, and I just stopped holding up the walls. Trust is earned, not owed. And my dignity, it isn't for sale. Not for $16 million. And certainly not for him. I am Elena Vance, and for the first time in my life, I am free. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You're asking yourself why she waited 29 years to do that, or how could she let him humiliate her in front of 300 people before finally snapping? It's easy to judge from the outside, but when you're trapped in a house built on egos, the walls don't just surround you, they're inside your head. Let me break down the psychology of what just happened and the street-smart financial defense that made her win. First, the psychology. What we're looking at is something called intermittent reinforcement. Toxic family members don't act like monsters 100% of the time. They give you just enough crumbs of hope, a rare compliment, a half-hearted smile, to keep you pulling the lever, hoping for a jackpot of love that never actually comes. My father used my career as a weapon because he knew my desire for his respect was his greatest leverage. But here's the shift. I stopped playing for the jackpot. The moment I stood on that gala floor and stayed silent while he mocked me, I wasn't being a victim. I was being a predator. I let him overplay his hand because the louder he laughed, the harder he would fall. Now let's talk about the financial moves. The strategy behind this wasn't emotion, it was surgical. First, the audit strategy. Narcissists and scammers thrive on vagueness and big-picture prestige. They hate details. By flagging that $16 million grant for a compliance audit, I forced my father into a corner where his charisma meant nothing. In the real world, if someone is pressuring you into a deal or a family obligation, start asking for receipts and line items. If they get angry, you found the lie. Second, the canary trap. This is a masterclass in social engineering. I didn't hack him. I invited him to destroy himself by leaving that master key folder open. I gave him exactly what he wanted, a shortcut. I knew that a man who spent $5 million he didn't have would never be able to resist a fast track to $16 million. I made his greatest weakness, greed, my strongest weapon. Finally, I chose the buyout. I didn't just want my father in jail. I wanted my life back. I used my position at the foundation to ensure his ruin was legally irreversible. I invested my professional capital into my own freedom. Here's the lesson. Blood might be thicker than water, but it isn't thicker than your own peace of mind. My father didn't just lose his money and his freedom, he lost his audience. Without a crowd to clap for him, a narcissist is just a lonely man in a gray cell. You're allowed to walk away from people who treat you like an accessory to their success. Whether you're a teacher, a waiter, or a CEO, your value is determined by your character, not by the punchlines of someone else's joke. If you've ever had to build your own escape from a toxic situation, tell us your story in the comments. We read every single one. And if you're ready to stop seeking validation and start building your own empire, hit that subscribe button. We value your growth over your status.